All right, I wanted to just go through some of the key information on lines and slope. So you've got all this in your notes. So everything we did in Math 103, it just really depends on what your background is and your algebra class that you've taken. But this is the one that I really focus on when I'm teaching algebra. And this one we'll use as well. So let's see, we've got vertical lines, that's x always equals some number. Horizontal lines, that's when y equals some number. And then when you've got x and y on both on one side, that's called the general form. And we also have the slope, the change in y divided by the change in x. And perpendicular lines have opposite signs and they're reciprocal numbers. Okay, so let's just do an example where we use all of this. So if I am trying to find a line, it's going to go through the point -4, 1. Okay, so it needs to go through that point, -4, 1. And it's going to be perpendicular to the line passing through +1, -3. We'll just do it. Okay, so now I've got +1, -3, and 4, 5. Okay, so here's my line. And the line I'm looking for is supposed to be perpendicular to that. So, and it has to go through -4, 1. Okay, so this is the line that I want right here. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to find the slope of my yellow line, and then that'll help me figure out the slope of my desired line because I need it to be perpendicular. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. So slope between the points 1, -3 and 4, 5. Okay, so slope is given by the change in y, so I just have an x and a y for the first point and an x and a y for the second point. So my slope is going to be the change in y, so 5 minus a -3 all over 4 minus 1. So that would be 8/3. Okay, so that's for the yellow line. Now I need my slope to be, I need the lines to be perpendicular. So my new slope needs to be negative, so that it's, because it's going down, and it needs to be reciprocal numbers, so 3/8. Okay, so that's great, and now I also know that it goes through the point, what was it, -4, 1. Okay, so we can always use y equals mx plus b, y equals mx plus b, and we're going to plug -3/8 in for m. I have y is 1 and x is -4, and I'll solve for b. So this would be 12/8, and then that could simplify, let's see, 3/2, and I'll subtract 3/2 from both sides. So I've got 1 minus 1.5, so it would be -1/2 is equal to b. So I put all of this together, and the equation is going to be y equals m, I have -3/8 times x plus b, and b is a -1/2. So there's my equation of my line. Okay, and that's how I teach it in beginning, you know, in like a college algebra class, Math 103. But as we move on, it is often easier to use this point slope form. So let me just show that point slope form, and you may have done this if you had a different teacher. Okay, so point slope form goes like this: y minus my example point, y1 is equal to the slope times x minus the x from my example point. Okay, so here's my point, right? -4, 1. So that's what I'm going to call x1, and 1 is what I'm going to call y1. Okay, so we go y minus y1, which is 1, is equal to our slope, which is -3/8 times x minus, and then x1 is just from that point, so it's -4. And then we can distribute. So we've got -3/8 times y, this would be positive, minus a 4 is positive. And then we have -3/8 times 4 minus 1 is equal to -3/8x. And then, let's see, that's over 1, so that would be -3/2. Add 1 to both sides. And we've got y is equal to -3/8x minus 1/2. So it just is exactly the same process as we did all here using y equals mx plus b. It's just this often is, it can just be a tiny bit faster if you don't mind memorizing yet one more equation. So that's the point slope form. So in application, slope is the rate of change. So let's look at an application. So let's say that we bought a computer and we paid $1,000 for it. And after 3 years, the value went down and it's only worth $550. So if this is my value, oh no, I'm going to do that my time. This is my years. And then this is my value. And that's in dollars. Okay, so when I bought this, it was $1,000. This would be 500, so it's 500. Okay, and then in 1, 2, 3 years, it was only worth $550. Okay, so we can look, eventually this is going to just not be worth anything. Okay, so to write an equation, what we need is to find the slope. So we're going to do the change in y, so that's the initial value, so the x value, or the t, if we're counting that as time, is 0. So we take the change in y, so 550 minus 1,000, all over 3 minus 0. So that would be -450 over 3, which is equal to -150. So that's our slope. And now we need to write the equation of the line. So usually it's y equals mx plus b. The b is the initial value, so the b is going to be 1,000. But instead of y's, I'm talking about this in terms of v. The value is equal to the slope, which is -150 times x, but x I'm talking about years, so that's I'm calling t. And then the initial value was 1,000. And there's the equation of my line. So that's part A. B, what does the slope represent? So that represents the change in value. So every year the value of the computer decreases by $150 per year. And then C, how many years will it take for the value to be 0? Well, the value to be 0, I'm going to plug 0 in for v, and then I'll just solve for t. Okay, so we add 150t to both sides. Divide through by 150. And we get that t is equal to, let's see, we'll simplify that to 20 over 3, which is 6 2/3. 6 2/3. And so the time it takes before the phone is, or the computer is has 0 value as 6 2/3 years.